Hi, I'm Melissa Watson.
And I'm Julie Brown.
And this is week 3 of the Fabric Mart Fit Along. Last week we finished doing all the alterations to the bodice, and this week we're gonna fit the skirt and the sleeve. So let's get started. We have the skirt pinned on Julie. I have it pinned in the back, about a ½ inch away from her center back. Actually, do you wanna let go of the front a little bit? Thanks. So I'm just pinning it with the stitching line reaching the top of the waistband. Just like on the bodice, the stitching line for the waist of the bodice was reaching the top of the waistband. That's why we love this perfect elastic waistband. So I have the center back ½ inch away from Julie's center back. So that is, I'm just gonna put a pin there and it's gonna hold it there for me. And I'm also matching the stitching line with the top of the waistband. So in the front, I'm just gonna bring it down a little bit. The stitching line is gonna be at the top of the waistband, just like the bodice stitching line was at the top of the waistband. So you know that they will meet at the same point. It's magic. I am noticing that this is the center front line. So the center front is not coming anywhere near Julie's center front. So we're gonna need to add a chunk to the side seam and then we'll drape it again on her. So your center front is about, it looks about 2 inches away from the center front of the pattern. So what I'm just gonna do is take out the pins until I can reach the center front of the pattern to your center front. I'm just gonna, you can turn around for me, thanks. I'm just gonna measure from stitching line to stitching line at the widest opening of the skirt. So I'm kind of just estimating at this point. But it's no more than 2.5, 3 inches on total from stitching line to stitching line. So I'm gonna have Julie add 2 inches to the front and 2 inches to the back. And that way we'll just drape it on her body and we can trim off any extra we don't need. We're also gonna do the sleeve before we go do our alterations. So we're just gonna try this on and see how it goes. And it is fitting, but it's not really, you can see in the underarm, it's not really coming all the way up to her armpit. It's a little bit tight right here. Now with knits, you do want to do a 1-to-1, but this is a really stable knit that we're working with, so I want to give her a little extra room. You don't want the arms to be tight by any means. I think about ½ inch is going to do it, and I'm just going to test that by letting out these pins right here, ¼ inch on the half, which would be ½ inch total. And I'll test that just to make sure that that's gonna be enough. If not, we'll add more to that alteration. And yeah, look at that. So that's making it all the way up. She can't really pinch much. I mean, she can pinch a little bit extra, which is all she really needs for a knit. For a woven, you'd want to be able to pinch a lot more. So we're gonna do a ½ inch full sleeve adjustment alteration. You don't take the adjustment from the underarm seam because that makes the entire circumference of the sleeve cap larger. So you wanna actually do this adjustment from the center of the sleeve. And Julie's gonna actually show you how to do that.
Great.
All right.
Now I'm going to adjust my sleeve to make it wider. So there's alteration lines on your pattern piece, and the first line I'm going to cut on is the adjustment line, and that's this one right in the middle. So let me cut up through here, and I'm going to cut right to the stitching line. And you can see that it's marked with the red line. Then I'm going to cut in the opposite direction, but not through, because I just want to make sure that the two pattern pieces are together and that they still move. Then there's lines that have your pattern size. And so I'm size 12, and I'm going to cut along the size 12 line over here and then over here. and I want to cut right up to the stitching line. Okay, so I got up right to that stitching line as well. So now I want to make sure that I get about a ½ inch in here for the width. That's going to help make my sleeve fit my upper arm better. So I'm just going to eyeball it. And you can see as I'm moving, these, the bottom tends to go up towards the other pieces, and they're going to become parallel. And I'm going to take a pin and pin it over on the left side and position this other one over here, this still being a ½ inch. Over on the right side, that's going to hold everything together. And now I'm going to pin right through both the top and the bottom pieces of this pattern on both sides. And then pin at the top of the sleeve. And there we go. So this is a ½ inch, and I'm going to take the perfect pattern paper and squeeze it up through the middle here. You'll have to move your pins. I like to use the pins to pull the paper up. It's so much easier. Pin that back in place, and then take our tape and tape everything together. Now you can meet Melissa and I over at the mirror for a final tissue fitting.
So we just need to do a few final things to the skirt. I have the center back at Julie's, ½ inch away from Julie's center back. And now I'm just gonna unpin these pins at her upper skirt area. And Julie, I'm gonna have you bring the center front closer to your center front now. About a ½ inch away, that feels about right. And we added an extra chunk here, much more than we needed. So now I can kind of just use this tissue to drape on her body. And I'm just draping the shape of the tissue to her body. Let me just make sure that's, and you can let go. Oh yeah, that's perfect. You are holding it great. And that looks really good. So actually, it'll just go to nothing about right here. So now you can see where I've pinned these new pins. That's gonna be Julie's new stitching line. And she's just gonna add 5/8 of an inch to, from that new stitching line. And we've showed you how to do that, so you guys can do that on your own. Now, I'm looking at the waist stitching line. You can just let go for a second. The stitch line, if it is at the top of the waistband where it should be, you can kind of see, now I'm gonna have you turn this way, you can kind of see that the lines on the horizontal lines on the tissue are kind of swinging out. They're not quite straight. We want them to be parallel to the floor. So I'm just gonna lift up the front of Julie's skirt till the lines here and the hem of the skirt is parallel to the floor. And I'll just pin that to her center front. So we're actually changing the waistline seam, but that doesn't matter. The skirt is all about draping. The fit of the skirt is really all about draping. So just make it so the hem is parallel and you're good. And let's just look at the back as well. And you can really see that on the back. It's really swaying too. So I'm just gonna lift it up. It's kind of staying at the same place at the side seam. I'm just gonna lift it up until this hem looks like it's parallel. And there we go. That looks great. And now before she takes the skirt off, I'm going to mark her new waistline seam. It just got lifted up in the back and in the front. There we go. And I'm just putting a few marks. I'll true those up back at the table afterwards. All right, so that looks good. And Julie, I'm just gonna have you take a look at the length of this skirt and tell me if you like that length right there.
Yep, that looks great.
That looks good. Okay, perfect. So we're done with the skirt. And last thing, I'm just gonna have you try on the sleeve and make sure that it comes all the way up. Oh yeah, that slid on really nicely. And that feels good. And you still have a little extra room, which is fine. Just a, quarter of an inch. That's easy. Perfect. In next week's episode, we're gonna do the fabric fitting. We're gonna go over how to prepare for your fabric fitting and why it's important to do a fabric fitting. And then we'll also see the final reveal of the garment.